Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going In Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going In Raw. We also offer the Steven Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steven Larson or go to patreon.com/Steven Larson to sign up. Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
Welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. On today's episode, we're taking a look at your hot takes from the world of professional wrestling, and then we react to them verbally and body language-wise, I guess. Oh, WrestleMania is boring. Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, WrestleMania hasn't happened yet. It'd be the lead up to. Let's start with this one from Siren. Says, hot take. This is the most boring build-up to WrestleMania in recent years so far. None of the projected matches are that exciting. It seems like they're just trying to shoehorn the main eventers into the event without having a clear picture for them. Steve, you're number one Triple H fan. I want to hear your take on this first. Also, I can drink my coffee while you do that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Afternoon coffee. Lovely thing.
I don't know why I do it. I get no benefit from it. This sounds good.
All right, man. So here's the thing. I don't know how somebody can look at, and I'm not going to say that, like, you know, the last couple weeks of programming had been like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're on this fantastic road to WrestleMania. I think one of the issues, just from like a, I don't know, scheduling standpoint, is the Elimination Chamber is kind of like the big deal match instead of the Royal Rumble. Like, the two main events, or, man, I don't even know. One of the main events for sure comes out of the Elimination Chamber this time, not the Royal Rumble. Cody Rhodes versus whoever's going to win the Chamber. Good chance it's John Cena.
Yeah.
So Cody's just waiting around, so we're just waiting around. On the women's side of things as well, the challenger for Rhea Ripley who's a stronger booked champion than Tiffany Stratton. I think there's going to be more expectations for the Rhea Ripley match than the Tiffany Stratton-Charlotte now match. So Charlotte won the Rumble, didn't choose the stronger champion. Jay won the Rumble, and he chose Gunther. And so the top two champions in the men's and women's division, we're still waiting for that. And there's a domino effect because, what is it? Seth and Punk are in the Chamber match. And I kind of feel like if they go with that triple threat, throwing Roman Reigns in there, that's going to be something that we're going to start after the Chamber. So my advice or my suggestion would simply be, and it's kind of like all over the place with like the mid-card titles as well. They haven't really established some really decent feuds there. I think that the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens thing is going to extend to WrestleMania. It's always possible they blow that off, or that just happens in Toronto when they go and do Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. But I get the feeling it's going to be a WrestleMania thing. So it seems like the real road to WrestleMania just starts after Elimination Chamber. And I understand why some people would be like, oh, that sucks. Because everybody's used to, you get out of the Rumble, you point at the sign, the road to WrestleMania begins. But you got this Chamber thing that's like in the middle of it. So, yeah, I get it. I understand. It hasn't been compelling. But I'm also kind of waiting until after Chamber to see how things heat up. If it doesn't heat up by, like, I don't know, a month from now, like March 15th, like a month out from WrestleMania, then we're going to have some major problems. If Roman Reigns isn't around still, then we'll have some problems. But I'm going to give it some time.
So over the last few years, we've had one of, if not the greatest stories in the history of wrestling, carrying much of WWE programming, the Bloodline saga. That has taken a back seat since WrestleMania last year.
Yeah.
And WWE Creative have yet to crack a story in that time that matches the saga that was the Bloodline feud, or the Bloodline story. And what we have now is similar in a lot of respects to what Triple H did in NXT, which is deliberately paced, sensible booking that if you look at it, for the most part, makes sense, but isn't always the most exciting thing.
Sure.
And lately, especially since the Bloodline reunion heading into War Games, it seems like there's instances I can name that. I think people are excited to see Charlotte versus Tiffany at Mania. I think people are hyped for that match because I've seen that sentiment online that people really want to see that matchup. And I think of late, in the last 4 or 6 months, Triple H has kind of relied on, well, people are going to be excited for this match, so I'll make the match, rather than taking the time to build to it organically. Like, I don't know why Charlotte chose Tiffany on SmackDown this week. I don't know. When she challenged Tiffany for her title on SmackDown, probably been a pretty good time to explain why she chose her rather than Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll do it this week on SmackDown. I don't know. But at some point, we need an explanation. Because based on the first 2 interactions, the case for a match against Rhea, based on story, seemed to be the stronger match.
Mm-hmm, sure.
So I just think we're seeing a creative philosophy laid out across the entirety of the show without the Bloodline story kind of being the through line through everything. Now, obviously, there's after effects of the Bloodline stuff, and that's not to say there's not interesting stuff. I think there's, in the details, is where things are more interesting, maybe, in terms of the intricacies of character work. But in terms of major story beats, cliffhanger moments, yeah, those are kind of few and far between. And if Roman's barely around the build to Mania, if Cena's barely around the build to Mania, like if Cody is supposed to main event night 2, and Cena's on television like 4 times between Chamber and Mania, it's going to feel like a bit of a letdown. Cody's going to need a feud in between those 2 shows to keep the interest up.
I mean, it's 6 weeks. If he's there 4 times, I mean, that's, 4 out of the 6 weeks of television. I'll be honest with you. I think you're right. I think it's more likely that your point will be proven because he'll be there 2 of the weeks. I think 4 out of 6 weeks would be great.
I didn't have the full schedule in front of me, so I pulled a number out.
Yeah, because it's the beginning of March until mid-April. So if he's there 4 times, I'll be kind of surprised.
Yeah, if he's there twice, I'd be surprised. Now
I
you mentioned that.
I think twice is probably likely, I would think.
Yeah, which is not enough for the main event of night 2. He's got to be there every week to hype that match and develop a story. Because obviously Cena's story is, I want the 17th World Championship title reign to break the record. That's his story going into Mania. Because he'll, at that point, have won the Chamber match. So, all right, losing streak over. He's down to the final 2 in the Rumble. So what's Cody's side of it? Obviously, he sees Cena as a friend, a bit of a mentor. I guess if they want to try to approach it from Cody's perspective, it's kind of like the culmination of what they've been doing with Cody, and that this title has gotten between him and all his friends. I get it. They really have to do some video packages with footage of Cena and Cody back in, I don't know, like 2012.
Yeah.
Something to really give me the feeling, all right, these dudes are close. They're friends. They could talk about it. I want to see it.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I think they're going to rely so heavily on Cena going after that title. And I have a bad feeling that the promos are just going to be ad nauseum. It's going to be the same thing, copy, paste. And I think the one feud, if they do pull the trigger on it, that has a lot of promise and could be, at the very least, the closest thing we get to a bloodline level saga is going to be Punk Rollins Roman, if that's going to be the match, because you have Heyman there. Rollins and Punk will be there, I think, most of the weeks leading up to Mania. Maybe they'll even get Roman in there most of the weeks. If not Roman, definitely Heyman, who, I'll be honest with you, probably, not probably, but will be a more effective promo on Roman's behalf for those 2 other guys. And so I think that is going to lead to some pretty damn good moments. And otherwise, look, if let's say we get Sheamus and Braun Breaker, Sheamus going after that, that Intercontinental Championship, might be some good stuff there. But yeah,
the match will be good.
The match will be good. You're absolutely right in terms of there is no saga this year. And it really does speak to how strong the bloodline stuff was. And look, I think we also might have some good stuff with Solo and Jacob Fatu on the horizon. We're 2 months out, and it does kind of feel like they're waiting for Chamber for all the pieces to be into place to start revving it up. Would it have been nice if you would have had a variety of stories converge like they did last year? Like, for example, what's Drew McIntyre really doing right now? You got to wait till after the Chamber because he's in the chamber. He's in the chamber. Yeah.
Potential Mania opponent, Damian Priest.
Right. So you kind of got to wait for that to play out. That's going to be a feud, basically all pull apart brawls, but might be some good promos in the meantime. So yeah, we're still waiting on the Jade Cargill thing. I think they've got a direction with that. Might be some decent twists and turns, like the big, what I feel is going to be a Naomi reveal. Probably going to be a good one. But they have to land these things. Yep. Otherwise, all these complaints are going to be justified. Speaking of which, the next one, Jordan for Kicks says this. Hot take. No match feels like it should main event WrestleMania. He breaks it down here, and I got a couple issues with some of these. He says this year, Cody versus Cena will probably disappoint in ring. Cena, he could put on good matches, and Cody could put on good matches.
Yeah, they'll give it time, and hopefully if the story's decent enough going into it, then they can play off the story, and it'll do
And I feel like also that one has the added benefit of who's really going to win that match? You know, I feel like it's going to be Cody, but they could do Cena at WrestleMania. That wouldn't shock me. He says Seth Punk reigns for no title is an odd choice. I don't know. I feel like with Punk's favor for Roman, Heyman, Rollins and Roman's relationship, there's enough stuff that can be written really, really well.
You know, I think the three participants, there's a lot of good stuff that could be done. I just think making a triple threat match, for me personally, I get the individual participants and the stories and dynamics they have between them is interesting. I just feel like the triple threat matches, they just try to. Otherwise, if they don't do a triple threat, there's going to be an odd man out that we either would have like a lesser Mania match or not potentially be on the card. Seth. So they're shoehorning Seth into that. That's kind of what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough history between Seth and Punk to justify him being in there. Jey Uso and Gunther doesn't feel big enough. I like the promo on Raw, but you know, we just saw it at Saturday night's main event. I think Jey Uso dethroning Gunther, I think that's going to be a big moment. Rhea, Liv, and Io. I don't know how you'd get Io in there, and I don't think they're going to do. I don't think that's going to be the match. So, and he says Tiffany doesn't feel ready yet. I think Tiffany feels ready. And that, again, that's one. What are they going to do? Is Tiffany going to beat Charlotte, or are they going to give Tiffany some adversity in her early main roster career after winning the title, lose to Charlotte, maybe pick it back up at SummerSlam or something like that? So I think that it's far from being a foregone conclusion for some of these matches, for some of the bigger matches. I think Jay is a foregone conclusion. But in terms of it, no match feeling like it should main event WrestleMania, again, once they put the razzle dazzle behind these matches, a bunch of them could justifiably main event WrestleMania, in my opinion.
Well, I think just the nature of Cena's retirement tour, going after number 17, facing the face of WWE right now, and Cody. Yeah, I think that alone justifies regardless of the story.
Yeah.
Beyond Cena going for number 17, that alone kind of justifies it main eventing. There's a way they could get to Rhea, Liv, Io. Liv has to win the Chamber. Did that be some wonk finish to Io's match against Rhea?
Sure, yeah.
Coming up the Raw after Chamber, maybe because of Liv. And that motivates the triple threat. I could see that being the case. Okay, all right. I would like that match, to be honest with you. I'd be cool with that match just because Io's in it. Yeah. Let's move on to more slandering of Hunter Hearst Helmsley name, Larson, with this one from Aditya. Says, Hunter is a boring booker, and it's been showing this WrestleMania season. Last year was the final boss who generated the excitement, making Cena win the Chamber only for having him 3 Raws after that.
will fail the build-up hugely. So we've got 3 possibilities: 2, 3, and 4 Raws for be SmackDowns for John Cena.
Let me ask you this: You take this, let's say The Rock was said pass, board member, no way.
Sure.
When offered that opportunity, no Rock in the WrestleMania build last year. Would we have gotten a logical, sensible, at moments compelling because of the promo stuff with Cody and Heyman and Roman? But it wouldn't have been near to the same level as what we got because The Rock was part of it.
No, there were moments that were like kind of jaw-dropping. You know, the Las Vegas stuff I thought was really strong.
When The Rock beat the hell out of Cody in the rain?
That was, and then outside the ring in the rain was really dramatic. Yeah, dude, I think Rock, absolutely. Rock came back and kind of made that WrestleMania build for a match that wasn't even him versus Cody, but he kind of made it. Every time he showed up, Roman Reigns kind of faded to the background like he tends to do. So yeah, no, I agree with that. Listen, is he a boring booker? I think Triple H has shown signs that I think what you said earlier about the big moments, we need more of those. We clearly need more of those. I appreciate that the guy is a sensible booker. He's a booker that seems to want some amount of logic, reason, character motivation, and character development. But yeah, sometimes I think he loses sight of the big razzle dazzle, the big moments. Like Vince would just, grab moments out of a fucking hat and throw them at you, whether you see him coming or not. And it's like, well, that was a moment.
Yeah, whether it made sense or not, based on what the characters were doing, their motivation, sometimes things would just happen. It's like, he's booking the moment, not necessarily the story.
Yeah, but you'd have a memorable ass moment. And 9 times out of 10, the follow up would be awful, terrible, non-existent. We had the moment. Kofi Mania is a great example of that. It was like, oh my God. And the build was actually pretty decent. Apparently Vince was like very hands-on with the build. And he gave us that Kofi Mania, and then once that moment was done, kind of bored with it, So there's worse things than being a boring booker, and I don't even know if I'd call him boring, but yeah, I kind of feel like we need a little bit more of the razzle dazzle.
Sometimes he might be a bit too sensible for his own good in terms of how he approaches stuff, because sometimes stuff is plotted so meticulously. There's probably a handful of stories we could think of. We put our heads to it. All right, let's move on with this already. Like, how long has A-Town Down been in the process of breaking up? A year?
Yeah, very long time.
And at a certain point, you just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
Because right now, this feels like spinning of wheels.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then sometimes, like mentioned earlier with the Bloodline reunion, it all coalesced with a matter of like 2 weeks without any of the issues between any of them really being seriously addressed and resolved.
Yeah.
And so we're all excited to see OG Bloodline back together, but at the same time, it feels a bit shallow because there's a lot of good character stuff they could have explored, but they just kind of rushed past all that to get to the match. So there's been instances of both approaches, and it'd be nice to have a steady, meticulous approach, but not draw things out any longer than they have to, or speed run things because you want to try to hit that moment.
Yeah.
And again, with the Bloodline stuff, we don't know what, people's schedules, injuries, how that might have impacted whatever. But it was cool seeing them back in the ring together, but at the same time, this could have been better.
Dude, you got to wonder how much of it is, the old thing I always love talking about with you in terms of creativity in general, how you got all these ideas for really good stuff, and you get them out there, and then it's like, man, this is, as Triple H likes to say, the story never ends. Well, you've done such a good job in the past, you got to step that back up. You got to come up with some big moments to anchor, the slow and steady.
Yep.
The next hot take here comes to you from Mr. MK689. Mr. MK says, Cody beating Cena will do next to nothing for his career. Cena's been beaten so many times by guys whose push went nowhere, like Austin Theory, that he's kind of lost his aura. It'll undoubtedly be an awesome match, but Cody doesn't need this win. I had seen a take on social media somewhere that said John Cena needs to cool it with the goofy shit in the ring, like at the Rumble when he's just being corny goofball John Cena. And I feel like he might have turned the corner, losing that match, and then at the press conference getting very serious.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a way they can present him where John Cena kind of gets locked back in. And I don't suspect. Look, if he puts in an absolutely grueling, gritty, violent performance at Elimination Chamber
and eliminates everybody,
then maybe we're talking. Then it's like, holy shit, we got Super Cena. And in the 3 Raws three SmackDowns they have him for, I mean, maybe they can find a way so that it'll be, a big deal. If we get shades of a heel Cena, if Cena, does some shit, if he attacks Cody to show him that he's serious business, we get a John Cena pull apart brawl that we haven't seen since the Brock Lesnar pull apart brawl they did with him. Don't get a lot of that with John Cena. But if we get some of that violence, I think that's a good enough sign that things might have changed and he can have Cody's number. They got to put a lot of work into it, though, but because right now, as it stands, this take is absolutely right.
Yeah, I know. And maybe the idea is they have Cena have a dominant performance in the chamber. He eliminates everybody, which is going to just bring out Cena wins. Kind of ad nauseum. So it's a tough kind of balancing act they got to do there, where they got to kind of rehabilitate Cena's image as a competitor while not having it go over the top in that regard.
Let me ask you something. If we get him back for 3 SmackDowns, is there any way they can have him kind of in a very quick fashion correct the mistakes of the past or correct his losing record by beating Solo Sikoa, beating Austin Theory? That seems so weak because they're not really strong characters.
No.
And that's sort of the problem. Those guys got they really got nothing. Solo, Solo went on to better things, but I can't really draw a line directly from his Cena match to him.
No, because he lost 34 matches in a row after that, or 42, whatever it was,
And Austin Theory's gone nowhere, so beating Cena did nothing for him.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. Maybe there are a couple names where Cena can beat them on TV, but I don't see them doing that. Mm-mm. So it's gonna all have to be through promos, and I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a tall task.
It is a tall task. And as mentioned, I think just the nature of Cena's retirement tour and going after that title is going to be enough to justify the main event. And they'll probably lean really, really hard into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, again, unless they really do an extended video package of Cena and Cody's relationship prior to Cody leaving to give us a real sense they were close. John Cena's his mentor. And even that relationship isn't enough to potentially withstand this championship getting between them. Something's got to be personal about it for people to get really invested, I feel like.
Yeah.
But Cena going after the title is just one aspect of it. That unto itself is not personal enough.
Especially with Cena's feud with Theory, Cena always has I don't know. The Theory one made a lot of sense because what he was saying just seemed kind of true. You know, it's
and it played out that way.
Win or lose, you kind of gain nothing from this.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
With Roman, it was a weird one because it was all I have to do is roll you up. Okay.
Well, it was even less than that. It's can I beat you? I don't know. That doesn't matter. All I need is a roll up and I can win. Yeah, right. It wasn't all I need to do to beat you is a roll up is I don't know if I can beat you. But I can roll you up, and it just takes 3 seconds, Yeah,
right. Yeah.
It was essentially, I got to luck into a win against you. But I think I can do that.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. They need to razzle-dazzle the shit out of this one. Hey, before we keep on going, man, let's talk about the Friendo Club setup really quick. Of course, we just crowned a new predictions champion. Ram Your Mommy is our new predictions champion for the month of February. We're heading into March in a couple weeks. Obviously, Elimination Chamber and Revolution are the 2 big events for the March Predictions Challenge. And you can participate in the March Predictions Challenge, of course, by getting the Friendo Club set up It's a fancy way of saying we got channel memberships here at youtube.com/Steven Larson. You get that by clicking join. It's $5 a month. Or you can go to patreon.com/Steven Larson. Click on the Friendo Club setup there. That also is $5 a month, and you get the same things. Access to a bunch of old bonus episodes, question threads, and, of course, the Big Blue Predictions Challenge. And then, of course, coming up, the big WrestleMania Predictions Challenge, the biggest one yet. Because we've got AEW Real World's Champion, CM Punk, his signature series title. It's not the legit one. It's a bootleg one from Pakistan. And this is on the line come April for the WrestleMania Predictions Challenge. And if you want some practice on how to do predictions challenges, right now is a great way to do it because the March Predictions Challenge is right around the corner. 2 weeks from now, we got Elimination Chamber. And then a week after that, Revolution.
Correct.
So if you're interested, click join or go to patreon.com/Steve and Larson. The next hot take is from Darius the Great. Darius says, even though Aleister Black was a Triple H guy, that should actually be a worrying sign. If you look at the list of Triple H guys in the company, only a few like Seth, Kevin Owens, and Sammy are treated with any significance. Finn Balor, Pete Dunne, Shinsuke, Andrade are all Triple H guys from the past that Triple H has left behind. So two of these kind of bad examples. Finn Balor, he just main evented Raw. Yes, it was a losing effort to Seth Rollins, but he's heavily featured every week on television. Shinsuke Nakamura is currently a champion. I don't know about those guys.
I mean, Finn's on TV, but he hasn't been necessarily portrayed as a winning wrestler in quite a while. Nakamura's U.S. champion, but he's barely on TV. Has he had a success? Has he defended the title yet? Maybe once.
Has he?
That's my point. Yes, he's a champion, but he's not featured on TV as a champion. I think he's appeared more in video packages than he has in ring since he's won that title.
I don't know, man. I'll put it this way. I think that there's a pretty big gulf between Finn and Shinsuke and Pete Dunne and Andrade.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that, but I think there's a pretty massive gulf between Seth Owens and Sami Zayn and all the other names mentioned here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the bottom line is, what do we talk about so often? There's a lot of top guys in the company. There's a lot, like, if I'm not mistaken, Drew McIntyre came back to NXT and immediately won the NXT championship under Triple H.
It was pretty soon, yeah.
So I get it. He's not like seemingly a guy that Triple H has taken under his, we've visually seen him take him under his wing, but clearly he loves Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Finn Balor had that moment, was it Raw 1000, whatever, where he and the Clique beat the shit out of the Revival.
Yeah.
And stood tall with them. Like, that's a damn strong endorsement of one competitor, one talent.
Yeah, I know.
I remember we were watching that. I was like, all right, that's pretty much Triple H saying, this is my dude.
And he can rely on it's not 2017 anymore. He can rely on Finn Balor to reliably main event Raws, take big losses, and yet still be in that position every single week. I don't think that's a bad spot to be in. Is it a Kevin Owens spot to be in? No, of course not. But I don't know. Like, if we're talking about Aleister Black,
let's lay it out there. If Aleister comes back, is he going to be up there with Seth Owens and Sammy, or is he going to be in the Finn Nakamura tier?
Well, I definitely would say he's not going to be in the Pete Dunne Andrade tier.
I even feel like Andrade actually gets wins on TV from time to time. Pete Dunne basically doesn't, which is a bummer.
Okay. All right.
I'd even say there's a difference between Andrade and Pete Dunne.
Who might be number one Triple H guy at this point, though, is Gunther. I mean, look at how Triple H has booked Gunther. Gunther's like the living embodiment of that old big gold belt. Like that's so a Triple H thing. He's like a very NWA type guy. I mean, I guess remains to be seen where he ends up falling. One thing he needs to be kind of concerned about, and I think this is a possibility, if he gets the Penta treatment. Penta had a huge debut And now
But isn't that kind of the pattern? You talked about this. We've talked about that, where someone debuts in a high profile or impactful situation, settle back down the card, get some wins, and start working their way back up. That's been the way in WWE for a long time.
A year from now, do you think Pentagon? Because I think he will be. I think he'll be in at least contention for the Intercontinental Championship.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Unless something goes like significantly wrong with his push.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, so, boy. So Alistair's going to be on SmackDown, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, dude, Alistair might end up being kind of like a more present version of Uncle Howdy, who's also on SmackDown now. The kind of like, the supernatural type guy. He's got a lot of cool shit going on. But like, I don't know what's going on with the Uncle Howdy stuff. There was a report that somebody was injured, so like they're holding off on it. But if he's a more present version, I think there's a good spot for him being the next Bray Wyatt. I think that, and who wouldn't want to be that? I don't think he'd be Finn. I don't think that he'd just be sitting there taking losses all the time.
No, if anything, it might be more analogous to Nakamura, where present. I mean, even just based on his previous run on main roster, he was featured far more in video packages and promos and stuff than he was in ring. And they might take that course to build back his mystique and have his matches seem like events. Because they don't happen very often.
It's kind of a Bray Wyatt thing, So I don't know. If I'm honestly, if I'm any of these guys, I'm probably pretty happy. Not everybody can be at the top. If you're featured on television, if you're well liked by the company, do I want to see Finn Balor get that world title? Yeah. Am I realistic and I don't think it's going to happen? Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I think maybe once Gunther lets go of it, he'll have a chance.
No. There's too many people on Raw in line ahead of him. Like a lot of people.
Come on. How many people are on Raw ahead of him?
Seth, Punk, Drew.
Punk is not going for that Gunther title. That shit is not happening.
Hey, as long as he's on Raw, he's a contender for that title. All right? And he's in line in front of Finn Balor.
As long as he's not going to Saudi Arabia, he ain't doing none of those big titles.
Is Sammy even on Raw? Gosh, this transfer window is really confusing.
He was this week.
I know. I'd put Sammy's in line ahead of Finn.
Isn't Owens on SmackDown?
Yeah, I think. I don't remember.
I think they're both above brand.
It's also confusing. Anyways, Atticus has a hot take here. NXT is the right place for Jordynne Grace, not the main roster. Shawn Michaels is much better at booking the women's division than Triple H. So in terms of talent, promo ability, in-ring ability, charisma, camera charisma, every metric you could think of, Jordynne Grace is ready for main roster.
Yeah.
Presentation, all of it.
Sure.
But the women's division, NXT, is arguably the best women's division in all of wrestling. And they are given the TV time to develop character and build stories in a way that main roster doesn't.
Yeah.
At this point. So the argument could be made that if you want to be featured prominently and build up your brand within WWE, that NXT is the place to be.
Okay, so there's a couple things here. HBK does do a very good job with the women. That can't be argued. The depth of talent with the men, I should say the lack of depth. Partially, man, look at you, strong guy.
Just broke my pencil.
Whoop.
It's one hand.
The lack of depth in the men's division kind of contributes to that, but also like he was given a bounty. He had those huge free agent signings and a lot of excitement there. He does a really good job developing as well with the women. It just seems to be a strong suit. I don't think Triple H does a terrible job with the women, though.
Doesn't do a good job, though.
I'd say he does an okay job. I wouldn't say it's bad. I mean, we got a number one contender for Lyra now. We've got Chelsea Green doing really good work on SmackDown.
Yeah, but again, Lyra is the first women's Intercontinental Champion. How many title defenses has she had since she's won that title?
Has there been one? Has there been one?
That's my point. What's her story? Where's her character going?
Yeah, I know, but everybody's like that. Everybody's like that. It's not just the women. They do that shit with the tag teams too, and with most of the men as well. They're featured. They're on television. They got a story right now with like Jade Cargill being beat up and trying to figure out who did that.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
Roxanne Bailey, I know it's mainly playing out on NXT, so gonna give that one to HBK.
Like why did Charlotte
found
choose
her
Tiffany?
character. Raquel found her character. Charlotte wants that title just because she's Charlotte. She can do whatever she wants to do. Look, I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's not like significantly worse than the men. None of it's all that compelling these days.
No, none of it is all that compelling.
Unless you put Phil in there.
Yeah, none of it's terribly compelling.
You hear that crowd chant for CM Punk on Raw? He wasn't even there.
Yeah, I know.
During his Seth Rollins match.
I know. Yeah, you're right. None of what's going on in WWE main roster television kind of across the board is that compelling. It's just not. It's just not. But again, I feel like Shawn Michaels' booking of the women's division in NXT is more consistent in terms of helping or allowing the performers opportunity to develop their characters and portray those characters than what Triple H does.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure out where she belongs. My gut says main roster. She's just because everything you listed. She's got everything for main.
Yeah, she does. She's one of the best wrestlers in the world.
Yeah. So put her in main. Yeah. And then just devote some creative energy to her. But Triple H, I don't know. I don't know. Put her in there. Have her beat Chelsea Green for the U.S. title. Yeah. Have her team with bad Naomi, like we suggested. That's a good idea.
That would be interesting.
Too. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like they're doing that, though. She's going to be in NXT and probably lose to Julia. Which I don't know if that's the right move either.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Just shoot her straight to main roster. I want to see her mix it up with the main roster names.
No, man. I do too. I want to see her have matches against Bianca and Rhea.
Have her be the pen of the women's division. Comes in big way, elevates a couple mid-carders, but beats them all, and then works her way up to the whatever title. US. See,
here's the thing: if Jordynne Grace comes to main roster, it's got to be. It can't be the thing where she's in a match against. I don't know. Give me a former champion on. Like she has a feud with Liv Morgan right away, and then wins that match, and then drops back down to the lower mid card, and we have to wait a year for her to get back up in title contention. No. With her, she makes a huge impact immediately, and you put her right into title contention immediately.
You know what's funny? That it's been so long, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since we've been presented with this situation in the women's division where like a huge free agent signing. Let's assume she goes to NXT for till Stand and Deliver, and then she gets drafted with the top draft pick on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. It's been a while since we've seen that, so there's not a lot of precedent for that.
Yeah,
but just in the men's there is. But just
so I guess I'll say this: if Jordynne Grace, if she were to debut on the main roster in a really high-profile, impactful way, and that's sustained past the first feud, that is the way to bring her to WWE.
She needs to come in and beat Chelsea immediately.
Yeah,
I love Chelsea.
Like that.
I think she's great. But
she's
she
awesome.
did that, and she was the U.S. champion for a year.
Then that's the right way to do it.
That's
the right way to do it.
That's how you do it. And I think that's better than going to NXT and beating Julia or Stephanie.
Yeah.
They just won those titles.
Yeah. So in the end, depending on the nature of the creative, if she were to go to main roster, if they got something good for her, that's always kind of the caveat. Then obviously that's the way to go. But, for whatever reason, maybe it's just simply, hey, Mania plans are locked in for main roster. We want to get you on TV, get you familiar with our audience. So similar to apparently what's going on with Ricky Starks. Go to NXT for a little bit and then maybe in the summer, we'll bring you up.
Yeah, that could be.
In which case, that's when you got to debut her on main roster in a really super impactful way. Because she's a main event talent.
Oh yeah, she is, absolutely. Yeah, this is like bringing in, I don't know, the closest thing you have to. Oh, and then there's also Becky Lynch. How's she going to fit in? Anyways, speaking of the women's division, Jay Smooth here says women's mid-card titles was a good idea, but the way Triple H is booking both champions right now, it just devalues both titles. Should have just introduced one women's TV title instead. Hard disagree on this one. I think Chelsea's doing terrific work, and I think you're absolutely 1,000% right about Lyra Valkyria. She hasn't defended it. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And hopefully that'll change. But I don't think it would have been any different if you just put one. I think chances are if you put one women's title on there, it would have ended up more like Lyra than Chelsea. I think.
Well, it depends. It depends. I don't know if Chelsea, who's got a really strong character, had held the TV title first. I think it would just be booked similar to how she's being booked now with the U.S. title. I just don't know if creative knows who Lyra Valkyria is.
Yeah.
She wasn't in the Rumble very long. She just got beat by Bayley in a chamber qualifying match. There's a chance she loses to Dakota Kai when that match happens.
What?
And it could be a relatively uneventful.
Buddy, Dakota Kai is like a copy paste. Who's Dakota Kai's character? You know what I mean? I'll put it this way: you're almost there. You're almost there.
I think they have a match booked.
I think it's entirely possible Roxanne Perez shows up and beats her for that title. Beats Lyra Valkyria for that title.
I was just mentioning Dakota because she has a match with her next week or whatever it is.
No,
I know. Might be her first defense, and it's just a massive oversight to have someone win this title for the first time and not dedicate creative energy in terms of building up her as champion and thus building up that title.
Well, she had a match for the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, and lost to Bayley. Yeah.
I know.
It's an issue. We talked about it all the time. If she was going to lose, she shouldn't have even been in that match.
Yeah, she's really good in the ring, though. And I think that's what Triple H, sometimes he just looks at that and he's like, oh, man, this person's really good in the ring. Let's go ahead and, push them and then not because we don't really know what to do with them at this point. Yeah, she should have had a bunch of title defenses by now. Absolutely. Especially okay, your show's 2.5 hours. Add 8 minutes for a match.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Man. No, I get it.
Diehard Homer here with the hot take says Tony Khan isn't entirely to blame for Malachi and Miro and AEW. I have to think there is some truth rumors of being difficult to work with, so we're not there. We don't know.
You think, let me ask this really quick.
Sure.
As you ponder. Do you think Tony Khan, to a degree, might be kind of like an NBA coach who, to a degree, has lost the locker room in certain situations?
Well, we've spoken extensively about how potentially the lack of structure in AEW and a bit of a leadership vacuum could cause issues.
What is it? What is it that people will, and I think I know the answer to this, that in WWE, CM Punk is on best behavior. In AEW, Tony Khan can seemingly be kind of like taken advantage of, or he doesn't have. It's because he's not Triple H. That's the thing. Triple H has like 1 million years. He's got the total and complete backing of $1 billion company.
So, one is structure. Like, seemingly there is a structure, a corporate structure as it relates to talent in WWE. And I think AEW has been working at creating some semblance of structure. I don't know what it is. Also, I don't think Triple H really prioritizes being friends with the wrestlers. Mm-hmm. I think Tony Khan likes being friends with the wrestlers.
Like Triple H has more, I mean, and I hate to say this because so many people were down on the same thing with Vince McMahon, but like so many of these wrestlers seemingly like look up to Triple H. You know, all the pictures of him pointing.
So I think, I know all the pictures, there's that video or something of Ricochet getting upset about something and he's consoling him. Like, I think people respect Triple H.
Yeah.
I think he's earned respect from the wrestlers, and I think he looks out for them and cares for them. I don't think he's trying to go hang out and have beers with them after the show. That's the difference. I feel like people, when they're in, especially in NXT, that seemed to be a really tight-knit group in NXT, where he's there fostering their development. They're gaining the knowledge of Triple H, of the WWE system, and I think there's a bond formed because of that.
Yeah.
And whereas I feel like in AEW, Tony Khan wants to hang out with the wrestlers.
I think you're right. I mean, there's a ton of evidence to support that.
Yeah, I mean, Joey Janela talked about hanging out with Tony Khan all the time.
When he's talking about like getting, no, he used to like tequila shots or something like that. I forgot what it was. Yeah, dude, I don't know. It is funny though, because it's like you have to wonder if Tony Khan took more of a hands-off approach, if maybe these things wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's either all right. He's the owner. He cuts the checks. If you want to go and grab a drink after the show, cool. But there's someone else on the day-to-day basis that's handling the creative of it, or he's the boss. He's not, I would hope, a jerk. You could have a good relationship with him, but he's the boss. If he says yes, his words have to carry weight.
Yeah.
If he's the boss.
Yeah.
And if it's a situation where he's too worried about upsetting his relationship with the wrestlers, and therefore his words don't carry the weight they probably should, people can and sometimes will take advantage of that. Ultimately, who's the boss? Tony Khan? Regardless if he ever developed a rapport with Malachi or Miro had issues doing jobs, whether there's any truth to that. And I don't know if there is, because we ain't there.
We're not there.
Tony Khan, as the boss and the head of creative, has to find a way to work around that.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah. Rayan015 says, taking a clean 1-2-3 isn't that bad, and top guys need to get pinned more often. WWE's fear of making guys look weak with the clean pin keeps them from making satisfying stories and stratifies the roster. Hard disagree. I think top guys should not take pins all that often.
Well, I don't necessarily think they should
Roman Reigns taking eating pins? What are you talking about?
Well, I think it's a situation more of, I'll bring up the example of Will Ospreay in AEW.
Okay.
Where he doesn't lose very much, but when he does lose, I think it's to provide maximum impact for that particular loss.
Sure.
Like him losing to Kyle Fletcher was supposed to make Kyle Fletcher,
Okay.
For example. And I think that's kind of the approach that should be taken with top guys, if you will. No, they shouldn't be losing on a weekly basis to Raw or even once a month, but they shouldn't be above losing from time to time if it makes a difference in the story you're telling.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something comparable to CM Punk and MJF, where CM Punk lost to MJF twice in Chicago or whatever it was. I'm trying to think of something comparable to that. It's like you and I say, you more than me, I think. Gunther should have beat Cody in Saudi Arabia.
It made a ton of difference in terms of how that World Heavyweight Championship is perceived.
Yeah, but I don't know if they really care about that.
No, they obviously don't, because if they did, they would have had Gunther win. They don't. They want the undisputed title to be seen as the top title.
Well, did you see that hot take? I didn't put it in here. Did you see the hot take?
Yeah. That's not a joke. The title says undisputed.
So somebody said Larson's joke about the undisputed name of Cody's title is getting old. And I was like, I read that. I was like, brother, that ain't a joke.
Larson ain't a joke. The title that says undisputed on it is clear. They think that's the top title, the World Heavyweight Championships, the consolation title.
Yeah.
That ain't a joke. That's how WWE is presenting the two belts.
It's not a joke. I'm trying to think of I do think that there's like a decent middle ground though. Like Roman Reigns going on his epic run. Yeah. At no time should he have been pinned until Cody beat him.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins takes pins though. He lost to CM Punk.
Yeah. He takes pins.
Punk doesn't take pins.
Well, he got pinned by, he lost to Drew.
Oh, he lost
in
to
their
Drew.
first match. He got pinned there.
That's true. He did. Who Who's the other top guy? Drew McIntyre eats pins left and right.
Left and right, yeah.
Yeah,
He eats tons of pins.
Tons.
Cody doesn't.
No, he's their top guy. He's the Roman now. He can't eat pins.
And he couldn't tag matches.
Oh, that's even worse. A tag match?
Depends on the circumstance.
No way, man. No pin. No
Depends
way.
on the circumstances.
All right, man. We're going to end on this one here.
Oh, you put this one in.
From Shotgun Sean. I always like to finish on something goofy or something about us. I was going to use that, the joke one. Instead, I'm using this one. Shotgun Sean says, AEW having a slightly smaller ring than usual at Grand Slam was the worst thing to ever happen in wrestling. I still haven't stopped projectile vomiting since I first saw it. Dead company.
I mean, I could appreciate the sarcasm of this particular hot take.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, I don't think this is supposed to be taken seriously.
A very, very bad projectile vomiting issue. Probably has nothing to do with wrestling.
Yeah, I don't see how projectile vomiting would be caused by a ring that's 4 foot square, smaller than their standard ring.
You know, dude, the money we could be making if we just expressed a lot more fake outrage over silly bullshit like this.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I can't do that either.
I can't do that because it's disingenuous.
I think we'd be fraudsters.
We would be, and I wouldn't feel good about myself.
People would see right through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
it is funny to joke about it, though.
It is, but it's, like I say all the time, there's so much going on in the world right now to be outraged by. Don't waste your time being outraged by the size of a wrestling ring, goddammit. Planes are falling out of the sky.
Planes are falling out of the sky, man.
Be outraged about that. I could list 100 things.
What if people
1,000 things?
What if people want to, they're trying to jack up the overdraft fees again? Yep. Because that's great. I'll stop here. Anyways, that's going to do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.